Good evening all. Recently we've been having a noticeable rise in unlicensed podcasting in Dock Green. Usually they don't cause much trouble. Often it's just a couple of youngsters that are droning on about YouTube videos and the like. A swift clip round the ear and they soon learn the error of their ways. But now and then you run into some right nasty pieces of work. Take the case of Parker and Trowbridge, a couple of right tearaways who were causing trouble round the manor. They were blatantly trying to do a moderate amount of research before they even opened their mouths, actually daring to check facts and even correct them if they realised they'd made a mistake. That takes a bit of neck, I can tell you, and it wasn't long before we felt their collars. Anyway, I suppose we'd better get on with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, with impressively bright buttons but disconcertingly shiny helmets, it's episode 10, Around the Archives. Mind how you go.
At 6:30, we're going to see an episode of Dixon of Dock Green. Now, this was the first BBC television police series. Tonight's programme, which dates from 1974, is called Firearms Were Issued and is about the police at Dock Green being under suspicion of having killed a man. Following this, there's The Best of Dick Emery, which is a collection of interviews and sketches from the shows of the late 60s and the early 70s. And then Fanny Craddock. How many of you remember her?
Garbage.
Hello and welcome to episode 10.
Hello.
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 I'm Andrew.
I'm Lisa.
Hi, Warren.
And this is episode 10 of Round the Archives.
Oh, chives.
Yes, I like chives.
Okay.
They're in the herbs.
They are in the herbs.
Yes, we are amazed to have reached episode 10.
Yes.
And we're very grateful to everybody who's helped us.
Yes, thank you for listening, people.
So we're trying to get as many old
Hands.
old hands on the pumps for this issue. So we got some old friends returning.
We have.
But they will be later. But we do have Warren on the sofa.
We do.
Hello, Warren. And Warren, you're going to correct us.
Yes.
You're going to correct
I'm going
us.
to give you some corrective.
Yes. What is your correction about the Sweeney
Okay.
that we said? Because we said it was filmed in
Bristol.
Bristol
In
University,
Bristol.
and that's wrong, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Brunel University is in West London, a place called Uxbridge.
Ooh.
And if you go to the local police station there, because I know I was based there at one point, there's some photographs of them filming the Sweeney and filming that particular episode.
That very episode.
Yeah, well,
Hooray. And you've seen these?
I have seen these. They're in the canteen.
Oh.
And the bank in question was actually a bank. It's Lloyd's Bank.
Yes.
It's still open. It's still on the campus.
Ooh.
And yeah, in one of the commentaries for the DVD, Garfield Morgan says they were all worried because they were filming it on a Saturday and Sunday, and all these students were all due back Sunday night, and they were needed desperately to get it all in the can quickly.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, one other thing for Brunel University. One of the people at Brunel University is none other than Professor Heinz Wolf, famous for the Great Egg Race in the 80s.
You need to build this and get there.
Yes, and if you look on there, you can see his email address and his phone number if you really want to talk to Heinz Wolf.
I don't think he'd be very happy if you phoned him up.
No, I'm not going
Let's
to.
try now.
But no.
Heinz.
Also, and it's a correction from the outtakes, really.
Yes.
But Gar is not in the Dalek Master Plan. That's Garge, played by Geoffrey Cheshire. I might have been thinking of the Garm from Terminus.
Yes.
But
And
there we go.
Can I say I apologise about the Brunel University thing? I read Brunel University and obviously didn't read any further
Yes.
and assumed it was in Bristol because that's where Brunel was
With-
from,
With his big hat.
with his big hat and his cigar.
Yes. But thank you for that. I think that's all the
Yeah.
odds and ends. But now we're going to look at Dixon of Dock Green.
Yes.
Firearms were issued.
Yes. Good episode.
Very good episode.
Yes.
So, Dixon of Dock Green, firearms were issued.
Yes.
Mm.
It's a good
War-
episode.
Warren, you saw this first
I saw this on
in
the TV.
1986.
Yes, TV50 celebrations, weren't they, on BBC Two?
Yes. And I saw it, and you didn't see
I didn't
it,
see it
Lisa.
then. No, I only saw it more
So
recently.
so I must have shown it to you. That's the first time you've
I think the first time I saw it was when we watched it on the DVD.
on
I think.
DVD.
Yeah.
Right, because
A
it is
year or
available
two ago. Yes.
on
Yeah.
DVD, as
Yeah.
are
Better quality than my video.
as are most of the colour Dixon
Yeah.
of Dock
There's
Green.
the odd one that's
Yeah.
not on there
Yeah.
for one reason or another.
But Dixon of Dock Green runs from 1955 to 1976.
Yes.
There's a few dribs and drabs that exist from the 50s, a few dribs and drabs that exist from the 60s, more than I thought, actually,
Yeah.
having looked through the list on
And quite a bit
missing
that
episodes.
exists in the 70s.
And but the only season for which everything exists is the final
It's the last
one
one.
from 1976. But Firearms Were Issued is the final episode of the 1974 season, 20th of April.
Yeah.
And if we just go into context again, Doctor Who that night, because it was a Saturday night, is The Monster of Peladon Part 5. Apparently, the Radio Times special, 68 full-colour action-packed pages, is on sale now, price 30p. We should get that.
Yeah.
Dixon of Dock Green is scheduled at 6:40, running till 7:30, and then it's followed by the Black and White Minstrel Show.
Oh, well, there you go.
Right.
I think we'll skip over that. But it's an episode by a writer called N.J. Crisp. And until I looked up N.J. Crisp, I didn't know what the N.J. stood for. Norman James Crisp. December 1923 to June 2005. And Dixon of Dock Green, he wrote 66 episodes of.
Wow.
He wrote most of my school books.
And tell us about this school books thing, Warren.
The first time I come across N.J. Crisp was, I believe it's English books.
Right.
And as soon as I saw it actually comes back to the TV50 celebrations. As soon as his name pointed to credits, I went, no, that's not. It can't be the same N.J. Crisp. Then you sort of narrow it down. It can only be the same person, really, with those initials. And I actually opened the school bag.
Oh.
And I had an English book in there. I can't remember what it was, and it was by N.J. Crisp.
Ooh. I'm just looking on Amazon, and there's all sorts of books by N.J. Crisp. But seems to be some novels and things like that here. Yesterday's Gone, published 1983. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, he's written for Compact.
High art indeed.
High Art Indeed. R3. That was that. I don't know much about R3, but it was some sort of science fiction-y drama thing from 1964-65. I can't remember if it exists or not. I'll have a look in a minute. Dr. Finley's Case Book. Doomwatch, Project Sahara. Colditz. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes of Colditz.
Didn't he do the one?
Well, he does Welcome to Colditz.
He does first.
Bribery and Corruption. Arrival of a Hero, The Gambler, and Death Sentence. Secret Army.
Oh.
Enemy at the Door.
Oh, yes.
Have we got that?
Yes.
Oh, you've
Yes,
got that, didn't
I've got
you?
that as well.
Yeah. And Secret Army.
Yes.
Have you?
And Kessler.
Sleep well.
So, yes. Person with a very long writing career history. Yeah.
Portfolio.
Portfolio, is that the
That's a
word?
good word. Yes, portfolio. Yes.
Yes. But, yes, what should we say about this episode?
It's good.
It's good, but
Yeah.
why is it good?
It's because it's interesting drama. It's the way it's done is apparently, according to Warren, absolutely the way it would be done in real life.
I'd say it's out of all the colour Dixons I've seen, it's probably the best procedural one for that period.
No,
Not a nail on the head.
I think we should sort of explain
Yeah.
the background of the plot here.
There's been a robbery
Involving guns.
Involving guns, and some people have been shot.
Yes.
Discharged in the high street.
Yes.
Wasn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Painful.
Including a child.
Yeah.
So they get a tip off of about where the robbers are about to meet to distribute the money they stole.
It's a
anonymous
phone call.
Yeah. And they're told that they've got shooters, they've got guns.
They've got shooters.
Gov. So
Load of blaggers.
and Andy Crawford, who's the detective
And well-known
inspector, is he?
greencracker.
You detective inspector?
He's detective inspector in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He decides that they should go with guns also in case there's a problem.
There's a little detail here, though, that the guy making the phone call, his voice is a bit faint on
Yes.
occasion.
Muffled, isn't it?
And he has to cross some details out,
An
and write them
address.
in again.
Yeah.
He gets the address wrong, for
Yes.
example. That's an important detail
It
later
is,
on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he gets permission to take guns, and he goes to see George Dixon, who is the station sergeant.
Yes.
And according to Warren, therefore in charge of the police station.
It is indeed.
Right, now it's clear in this scene where they get handed the guns out that nobody's particularly happy about it.
It's
so,
a very great...
Warren, can you give us some more detail about why this is a realistic scene?
Yeah. Dixon is a very jovial, lightweight... But as we discussed now, it's the 70s, can be quite gritty. But the realism kicks in when you're going to be given a gun.
Yeah.
They're not used to carrying guns. They're uniformed officers with the exception of Andy. And they're being given a gun. And you can see neither of them is happy with it.
Now, the procedure is George gets a book out.
The guns are kept in the firearm safe.
Yeah, and they're numbered.
They are all numbered sequentially. But the firearms are not issued sequentially.
No.
There's always a gap. So if you have 4 officers, as we have here, and there are 8 firearms stored, you will always leave a gap sequentially between
And
the
if you
shooting
look
firearm.
when they write in the book, they get this right, don't they?
They get They get it right. It's not a case of somebody just squiggling a line. They actually got the book looks genuine.
Yeah.
The contents look genuine. And Dixon authenticates. He is the station officer. He has responsibility on behalf of the superintendent, who's authorised the issue of firearms, to issue those firearms. He is the only person in the station who can issue those firearms.
And he has to read out a statement, doesn't he?
He receives a statement about the
use of them.
the use, moralistic use of the firearms, as well as the practical application. Yes, you can only discharge your firearm if you have been shot at or other people are in imminent danger.
Yeah.
But the detail the detail that the writer's gone into, they've clearly gone in and asked about procedure.
Even me watching it, it's shot in a very sort of matter-of-fact way, but you can see that everybody's uncomfortable. The characters are uncomfortable in that situation. It's not going out, gung ho, guns blazing.
A veil of someone can get seriously hurt here is suddenly shone across the group. And as you said, nothing is said other than from Dixon. They're handed the gun, they check the gun, they take their bullets, and all he says is, after giving his spiel about the issue of it, sign here. And nobody asks about anything. They just do exactly as they're told, which is exactly what would happen.
So we then go to the actual house where these
ruffians,
villains are supposedly
ne'er-do-wells.
Oh yes. And one of them sort of runs out, doesn't they? Andy's in pursuit, and he trips over
some wire or something.
Yeah, and his gun goes off.
Yeah. So when he trips over,
it's dark.
Yeah. Because they've turned the electricity off at the mains.
And some of the other officers then fire as well,
because they think he's been shot.
Yeah. But they hit the villain that ran out, don't they? And he's seriously injured.
Yes.
And then it turns out that none of them actually had guns.
Yes.
Right. So this immediately starts to escalate up the chain of command, doesn't it?
Yeah. It then becomes a crime scene for all intents and purposes, and technically somebody's life's been taken, haven't they?
Yeah. Well, at this point, the guy's just seriously ill. He's in hospital. Yeah.
The interesting thing is when they corner the other ruffians hiding in the lavatory upstairs. I'm a police officer. I am armed. Come out, which is different to what you'd hear now, or that somebody shout "armed police." And they make it quite clear that they're police officers carrying guns, and that was very sort of.
But the way the episode then goes is that it's the investigation into what actually happened and who hit the
And were they justified in doing
who hit
it?
the bloke.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's all very confused. I
Yeah.
like the fact that each officer gets ordered to tell his story, and they don't quite match up because it all happens so quickly.
And that's what would happen in real life. Everyone recalls, if you take a group of witnesses, everybody see the same incident, but they will all view it from their own viewpoint and take a little bit of something else away from it, or imagine they've seen, because one of the officers says he shot several times
Yes.
when he hasn't.
Yes.
And he was convinced that he's actually shot and killed this chap.
Now you then get the thing where Andy wants to leave the station to follow up a hunch as to who.
We should say that Andy is Andy Crawford, who is the detective inspector. I don't think you actually said that.
Okay, well he's the
And he's also Dixon's son-in-law.
yeah. So you have the interesting situation where he's the inspector,
Yeah.
but he's Dixon's son-in-law. Dixon is the station sergeant, and as you said, basically
He's the law.
he's in charge at that
Yeah.
point. So he says to Andy, "No, you can't go. You can't leave."
Yeah.
So he sends. Who is it? He sends off.
He sends Gregory DePaunay off, whose character I can't remember who's called at the moment.
D84 is
He's
that?
not well, he's not playing D84 in there.
Please don't show.
Please do not throw hands at me. Yes.
I heard a gunshot. Detective Sergeant Mike Brewer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
It was me.
He's sent off to do some investigations, and
Yes.
he eventually finds Cyril Shaps.
Cyril Shaps.
Yeah, Cyril
No-
Shaps.
no-
The
no-
wonderful Cyril
And he's
Shaps.
reel to reel.
and his
Yes.
reel-to-reel tape recorder.
Because he recorded the telephone conversation so that he could claim the reward,
God blimey, as I do.
finding the
Gav.
money for the insurance company,
Yes.
for the bank.
His Cockney accent.
Yeah.
Oh, he's brilliant, Cyril
Bless
Shaps.
him.
isn't
We
he?
love Cyril Shaps.
I love Cyril, yeah.
Or as I once called him, Cyril Snap.
Cyril Snaps, because we had a thing that he should have a line of like sort of biscuits. It should be the Cyril Shaps brandy snaps. Yes, all right, okay. That idea didn't go anywhere.
I think we were going off the point here.
Yes,
so.
it's all right. But yeah, Cyril's recorded this, and it's a good job he did,
Yeah.
because Andy's been basically sort of under the cosh for having words crossed out on his
Yeah.
bit of paper,
Yeah.
because the investigation basically throws suspicion onto everybody,
Yes.
doesn't it?
Yep.
It's quite uncomfortable to watch
It
on
is.
occasion,
Yeah.
that everybody's considered guilty really in
Yeah.
this investigation. There's a wonderful diagram that they have to draw on the
Of the
On
back
the
garden.
on the blackboard,
Yes.
and who is it draws it? It's
It's,
Sergeant
Sergeant
Wills.
Yeah.
Nick Donnelly, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's sort of drawn a diagram of the
And
layout
where
of the
everybody
garden, where
is.
everybody was when this shooting
But he
took-
does really
took
weird
place.
cheese.
Yeah, he writes back garden,
Cheese.
Cheese.
Oh, cheese.
Cheese, not cheese.
and he's not
Probably
cheese
cheese.
grommet. His garden. He seems to have written back sardine.
Yeah.
I don't know what a back sardine is. Is it only different to a front sardine? But
Easy.
yes, all right. But let's just talk about Wills for a minute.
We
Yes.
like Wills.
Like
Yeah.
Wills.
He's our favourite character.
He is. He's
Yes.
the only convincing police officer
Yeah.
in the drama
Yeah.
for me.
And
What is that?
He is what
Just
I
so
would
sort
say,
of matter of fact?
He
or-
is. He is the unruffled sergeant,
Mm.
but he is very. He does ooze experience as a police officer,
Yeah.
and he's very. It's very. Nick has done his background on this.
Yeah. I mean, George Dixon at this point is ancient, isn't he? When should he have
yeah.
retired? About 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
we should have retired when they started, shouldn't
yes.
he? When
And
they started in
yes,
1955, he should have
Well,
been retired.
In the blue light in the
Blue light, the blue lamp.
the blue lamp film, he was due to retire there and then. And he was going to retire.
Yeah.
And then he gets killed.
But
Then he
we're,
gets shot.
we're nearing the end of the series.
Yeah.
The series run, and you said one of the reasons he's probably station sergeant is so he doesn't have to go
Go
outside
out.
much.
Or move from behind the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And later on in the final series,
They
he
make
beca-
him...
collator.
That's right,
What's
yeah.
a collator?
Collator is the local information officer, or what they call intel officer now. They just collate all the intel from the officers brought in, and they put it on a daily briefing sheet, and that's given out to parade when all the officers come in. The duty sergeant will read it out to his parade.
And in practical terms, it means he gets to sit behind a
He
desk
sits
for the
behind a
entire
desk,
season,
yeah.
basically.
And
I think he goes outside once or twice.
Yeah.
There's a couple of little bits where he gets to go outside. but for most of the time he just gets to sit down.
Yeah,
which is
Because he had really bad arthritis.
yes.
And he couldn't move around very much.
Yeah. There was talk about carrying the series on without Dixon,
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
there?
And just calling it Doc
Doc
Green.
Green.
Doc Green.
And
Yeah.
didn't they sound out
Nicholas Donnelly.
Nicholas Donnelly, thank you,
to carry it.
about
He
becoming the lead,
and
but
he wasn't too happy about
he
that.
said, "Well, you can't have Dixon as Doc Green without
Yeah.
Dixon."
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe
I
it would
like
be-
the concept.
Maybe it
Yeah.
would have been
I like the
interesting
concept.
if you sort of moved it away a bit.
Yeah.
Just calling it Doc Green, maybe, or just changing the title entirely. It would have been an interesting character, I
Yeah.
think.
You've got established characters. They've got plenty of mileage to go on them.
Yes.
I mean, the actual investigation eventually establishes that he was the one that
Dead-eye Nick.
that he was the brilliant marksman that
managed
did
to
it.
shoot him, yeah.
And I think it's quite nice the way it's shot, in that he filmed rather.
I was going to say the
I was going to
suspect.
say no, the pun videoed anyway because it's in the studio. They're all sat in the room with the diagram on the blackboard, and they all go out, and Wills is left to sort of think about this, isn't he?
Yeah.
And it just stays with him for a few seconds. He gets up and he starts to rub out
The blackboard.
the blackboard. And the guy he shot was called Kendrick, I think, who's represented by a K. And the last thing he rubs out on the blackboard is the K. And then you cut to the titles, the end titles. I think I said to you, Lisa, that's the way I would have shot that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And the other thing that shows how good Nick is when the senior officer says to him, "That's a remarkably good shot. You should be very proud of yourself, Wills." And Wills doesn't react.
No.
He doesn't say anything, because I think the realism is it's hit him. He's taken someone's life, even in the line of duty. But he doesn't say anything, does he? He doesn't react. I think the way he's played that is really good, because now things, as you say, and that leads up to those last scenes where he's wiping the board and leaving the person who was killed to last off.
It's a very
He's sat
thoughtful
there,
ending, I think, and it's a very strong episode, and I can
It's a
see
cracker
why
of
they
an episode,
chose it as a repeat, because there are some episodes that there's stuff in there you wouldn't dare repeat these days,
Right.
and I think we'll talk about that
Another
sort
time.
of stuff at another time.
Yeah.
There is a certain episode, Baubles, Bangles and Beads,
Great.
that we would. I think deserves to be talked about in its own
on its own
right.
On its own right, yes.
But Firearms Were Issued is a very good representative
It is.
episode. If you
And-
want to
Yeah.
look at Dixon, that's a good one to start
And
with,
I would
think.
say, going back to Johnny Wills briefly, if ever you wanted a policeman on your side, he's the one.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
Because he's rock solid,
He is.
and you know he'd do his best
Yeah.
to help you.
And when he retired, he became a teacher at Grange Hill.
He did
didn't
become a teacher
Oh,
at
yes.
Grange Hill, yes. He's a PE teacher, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you
Blimey.
get the
Is
story.
this after Bullet Baxter? Or?
Yeah.
Before Bullet
Before
Baxter, I think.
Before Bullet
Bullet
Baxter.
Before Bullet
Yeah.
Baxter.
And what's the link between Grange Hill and Dixon?
Oh, gone.
It's
What?
gone that way. The lady who's production assistant
Production assistant on what?
on Dixon.
On this one?
What's her name? Yeah.
Oh dear, Bonnie. Production design, makeup.
Not Margot.
It might have been Margot. Yeah.
I don't know then. I'm going to have to
It might have
see.
been
We'll
Margot.
have to come back to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no
We
idea.
can't find it right at this moment.
We'll look that up when we
But-
do the thing.
I should say as well, we've talked about this before, but we think Dixon of Doc Green as an idea could be made now.
Yes.
It'd be made as a period piece,
Yeah.
a la Heartbeat or something like that. You could either set it in the 30s when Dixon's a young PC,
Yeah.
or you set it in the 50s when he's an older PC or a sergeant mentoring Andy Dixon. That's not right. Andy. Oh God, I've forgotten his name now.
Andy.
Andy.
Good
So-
old.
And I think you're right there, because they took that concept and threw it into the audio plays, didn't they, with David
Yes.
Tennant?
I was going to say because
Yes.
there was some audio stuff done. Was it just before David?
Yeah, David
became-
Tennant does one
the
series
Doctor.
and then becomes the Doctor, and somebody else does the second series.
Okay, right.
They have to get somebody else Scottish in to do the
Because-
second series.
Somebody else
It's,
Scottish.
it's the first few episodes, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
it's Andy's first pinch,
Yes.
and yeah,
Yeah,
Well, we
But-
should. We haven't
and that's
actually
David
mentioned.
Calder.
We
That's
haven't
Graham
actually
Dixon.
mentioned the director of this episode.
Oh yes,
yet,
Oh,
have we?
yeah.
it's
Veer Lorimer.
Veer here, dear.
Veer.
darling, they are.
Veer here.
Who never knew anybody's names.
No. What's the story about Jenna and Callie or something?
I think he called them...
In Blake 7.
Yeah, he called them Jelly.
What was it? Jam and
Jam and
jelly.
jelly.
Jam and jelly or something.
Brilliant.
Because there's a story about you could get Veer Lorimer to do your own stunts.
Yeah,
You?
because
Yes,
he'd say, I can't
yes.
do... You'd say, I can't do that. And he'd go, yes, you can. And he'd do it. He'd
Like
roll down the hill.
or something.
And then you couldn't say no because he'd done it and proved you could do it. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, he shoots it, I said, in quite a sort of matter-of-fact way,
Yeah.
which I think really works for the episode. It's sort of more documentary
It is.
than anything else. It's
Yeah.
not trying to be an action-packed
No.
No.
thing like the Sweeney. And for that style of story, I think it works.
Yeah.
We just got the end credits going now. So.
And they're still using Dixon's opening
yes, you
chat
said
now. We can't say that. Soliloquy.
What, the evening all?
Is it in
The
garage?
evening all,
Good
yes.
night all.
Yeah.
No, just the evening all, because there's a programme on the BBC
Oh, yes.
in the daytime, and they
About-
use
about
that
the police.
community policing, and
Oh,
they
right.
use that little bit of Dixon, filmised. But hey, can't get away with everything. But yeah,
Well, it also appeared at the end of Ashes to Ashes, didn't it?
he did. Yeah, because that's what sort of Gene is, isn't it?
Yes.
Gene is Dixon.
James Dixon.
Yeah.
There's some that really messes with
Okay,
my head.
we apologise if you've not seen the end of Ashes to Ashes because we've just sort of spoilt it for you.
Oh,
but
right, okay.
you shouldn't be listening in that
No.
case.
Okay, well, there you are. Dixon of Dock Green, firearms were issued. A very
Yeah.
solid episode.
Yes, very good.
Recommended.
Yes.
Very recommended.
Now we'll disappear, and then we're going to come back with Nick and Paul,
Mm-hmm.
who are going to have a debate about their favourite episodes of various 70s series.
Yes.
See you soon then.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello again. We are in Salisbury, and we have a twosome. Well, including me, we've got a threesome. But we have Mr. Nick Goodman.
Hello.
Hello, Nick Goodman.
Hello.
And Mr. Paul Chandler.
Hello.
And we're going to set them at each other's throats.
No.
Well, I hope not.
Gentleman's agreement.
Because I'm going to name some series and ask them to champion an episode and or a season in each case. So, Space 1999, which is the better season and why, and which episode is the best out of your favourite season?
Well,
Start with Nick. Nick.
Well, in my opinion, sorry, I'm trying not to look Paul in the eye. In my opinion, the first series was the best, but it really depends on what you want from your sci-fi. For me, I suppose it's because I grew up with the picture strip and the more serious UFO, which came just before. Space Series 1, as it was a natural progression from that, because it was quite serious and po-faced, and that had a lot of serious kind of thoughts about science and about the universe. And let's face it, if you're blasted out of the Earth's orbit and you're never going to see your home again, it's a tragic situation, and it's a tragic kind of thing descending on you. And I don't think it was ever in either season enough done about the kind of loneliness of, but you got it a little bit more from the loneliness of the universe from Series 1. And you have Barry Morse, who lovely actor, who provides the sort of the science part of it,
Right.
but also the kind of fatherly kind of thing with to everyone. You had so I think, and also I suppose the novelty factor, because it had just started out, and it had the special effects, but they weren't encroaching at this stage. Yes, it was metaphysical, and yes, it was very sort of pie in the sky, some of the episodes. But there was something about that sort of serious approach that I think
Yeah.
worked
So
very
which
well.
episode showcases that best?
Now, and inevitably, you're going to kind of turn to your favourite ones. I think. Which episode? I'm actually going to put aside my two favourite episodes. I mean, the trouble is, is it also one that represents the show? I think the one that the acme of the first series would be the Black Sun. Which is, of course, end. You know, they all think they're going to die, and they're all off, and something very weird happens. But it's done with a kind of gentleness and not so over the top, and a weirdness, and they all suddenly age, and there's a voice that might be some kind of great all powerful force, and they're all drinking brandy. And it's the props that actually sell it. You know, the human sort of tide of it. So I think Black Sun would be an epitome of series 1. As to my favourite episodes, I would quickly throw in
Go on.
Death Star, the Dominion, and Dragon's Domain, because they're both superb, and they've got, one's got a great story and a great monster, and the other one's got Brian Blessed.
Okay.
What more could you want?
Well, thank you, Nick. We'll turn to Paul, who I'm sure is going to disagree.
Well,
I'd be disappointed if you didn't do it.
well, I do think the ideal season would be season 1.5, a little bit of both seasons, but I find season 1 too serious. But I would go with season 2 because that has always sort of been the sillier season, and I like
season 2. I know very little about.
Yeah, I'm still watching. I'm literally just recently watched it on Blu-ray, so I am filling in the gaps where I hadn't seen every single episode, and episodes like The Walls of Luton with the trees. I find it delightfully like just amazingly watchable and ridiculous, and yeah, if I was going to make an episode of Space 1999, that's probably what I would come up with, talking trees and all sorts. But it's not my favourite one.
I was going to say, can you explain what's happened to everybody that's disappeared from season 1? Where are they?
I think they probably had food poisoning, and then in the process of being sick, fell down the toilet and got evacuated into space. That's probably what happened.
Oh, I see.
That's the official history.
Is it okay? That's canon, is it?
Yeah, that's canon. Yeah. And yeah.
So, favourite episode you've seen so far?
Well, it's one of the ones that I knew sort of the longest. Bringers of Wonder Part 1 and 2. That's right, isn't it?
With the pizza monsters.
With the pizza monsters. And who what I love about that is partly when they're like in a party scene, there's all these people standing around, and then when you see the monsters, they're absolutely ginormous, and you couldn't possibly fit them in the room. You know, spatially, it doesn't. It's ridiculous, but that sort of thing sparks my imagination and makes me sort of love it all the more. Really.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that as an answer. Right, we'll move on to Blake 7.
Blake 7.
Best season, first of all.
Best season, I would have to say, for me, was 2, because you still have Blake in it. Because I think anyone coming to a Blake 7 and say, oh, no Blake. Now, I'm not saying the show didn't prosper without him. I think it did. We're rewatching Series 3 at the moment, and there's a kind of sexy drive in it, which, although entirely appropriate in context, could not have happened with dear old Blake, because he was just he was more interested in starting a revolution than shagging anybody. And but with 2, you still have Blake. You got over the initial kind of fiddly faff of setting up the show.
Yeah.
If you wanted to see the show, you'd obviously go back to it, but as a snapshot, you had Chris Boucher starting to creep in. His stories, for me, raised the game a hell of a lot, and you had a wonderful, cynical kind of edge to it, absolutely pitch perfect for Blake. That really worked very nicely. You had a through line in that they were starting to fail a bit because one of their number dies. Although they got this supercomputer, everything was built up in Series 1, and now they slowly took it away and made it difficult. And they got a mission to go through. So there's a through line through the whole thing. Colourful episodes, a mixture of the sort of colonial kind of Federation ones. You've got the quirky ones. You've got the quirky one from Bob. So you're starting to get Bob Holmes. I mean, what better recommendation can you have? And you've got a slam bang, thank you, ma'am, end season cliffhanger.
Yeah.
However, individual episode, I would have to say that the episode that really encapsulates Blake for me and is the very best is Rumours of Death. I think it's absolutely bloody superb.
Yeah.
Ticks all the boxes. Chris Boucher again at his most magnificent. It's got an intrigue. So you've got kind of revenge plot, which is the kind of thing that pulls through the characters because they're not perfect. They're very flawed and they're very kind of damaged. And you've got that through a rebellion thing, so it's all interlinked with what had gone before. But also you learned a bit more about the show, and one of its lead characters, i.e. Avon, develops during that time, and it's just beautifully written and very competently shot by Fiona Cummings. And
I think that's that one always. Not that you particularly like season polls and things like that, but it's one of those ones that always features highly. I think.
Yeah. In fact, putting my money where my mouth is, 27 years ago, when I sat down with Elaine and her friend. Elaine's friend at the time was into Blake. Elaine wasn't. I was into Blake, and I was just getting Blake, and Elaine wasn't. So I sat down and showed them. We sat Elaine down and we said, we're going to show you some episodes. And it didn't take long for Rumours of Death to come out, and also Sarcophagus, which is I'm not sort of jumping. I'm not grabbing two here. It just happens. You've got a really strong couple of episodes together. Again, both by Fiona Cummings. But yeah, so that and that, and she left my house a fan.
Oh
well, at least wanting
to see more.
So I definitely recommend Rumours of Death.
Okay, right, Paul. You've had a chance to think because I've no idea what you're going to say for this.
Yeah, and I've not watched them from end to end for a long time, so it makes it easier in a way to kind of go instinctively what I would like. I'm not really bothered that much by seasons 1 or 2, and I'm not saying this deliberately. It's 3 and 4 that I like. Partly because season 4 I actually remember seeing at the time, and the early seasons I wouldn't have seen. But I just so I'm used to the lineup of sort of Tarrant and Dana, and I'm a big fan of Dana, particularly in season 3. I don't like when they all get stuck in the horrible sort of jumpsuits in season 4. I think it's a shame, but I still like those 2 seasons best, and it's just a good variety of stories. And I never really liked is it Gan? Yeah, I never really like Gan particularly, and I'm not a big.
He speaks highly of him.
I'm sorry, Gan.
Christmas card.
And Blake I find quite boring. I much prefer Villa and Avon, and I think Nick does know what
I'd be interested to see if I'm right.
I can't think of one for season 3, especially. Even though I like the whole I like most of the episodes, so it's difficult to find. So my 2 favourite ones that I have most often rewatched are Rescue and Blake. And Nick's guessed right.
I guess right. I didn't know you were going to say Blake, but as I'm thinking about it, you are. I have to say, just linking into what Paul was saying, it's an interesting concept, this Blake being, because it was a completely different animal to Avon and Villa and everything, because he was more focused on the mission than he was on the personal development, which is why I think he came across a little bit boring. And I didn't have a problem with him, but I would be interested to see. I think the show would have felt a bit stale if he had carried on. If he had actually gone on the 3, I don't think the show would have felt it was moving on. No disrespect to Gareth Thomas, he played it very well and it was a good character, but I would say yes, he did have a point. But yes, I rescued Chris Patrick.
I was excited when he turns into the Sea Devil at the end.
Yes.
It's kind of eerie as well.
Yes,
the music when they're down in the cave.
There's some wonderfully written bits for Dorian. The whole thing of one of the group was killed before you got there. Group remains by time and pain and the need to survive. I mean, what a brilliant writer.
Right, thank you. I'll stay with Paul. I'd written down the New Avengers,
Yeah.
but I'm going to expand it to the Avengers and all the New Avengers because I think I guess
Probably
where your
Yeah.
loyalties probably
Well,
lie. But
I
I'll
don't-
say favourite era of the Avengers.
Well, my favourite era. I do love the New Avengers, mainly for Joanna Lumley and Gareth Hunt. But my favourite era is the Tara King era, which is probably makes me a bit in the most people like Emma Peel, which I do, but I think she gets overpraised. And also in the colour season of the Avengers, it's very much affected by things like Batman by then. And I think a lot of the episodes become very formulaic. You can almost tell when, second advert break, this point would have happened, there'll be a fight. It's a bit like some of the episodes of things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know there's going to be a fight at a certain point in the show, and I think they slightly went. It was off sort of changed the formula, or didn't have a formula when Tara King was the assistant. And also I do like the sort of fashions and everything of the late 60s, and Tara's a lot more feminine. I like the fact that she's bashing people with handbags, and I think I just love, I think she's such a great actress considering how young she was, a lot of the excuses I've heard for why it wasn't successful, which blame her, I just think are a load of nonsense. I can't think that she could have been any better. And also, coming after a very popular assistant, you need to be different. You can't be the same. And she was given some dud stories and given some really good stories, but overall it's a really interesting era of the show.
I vaguely remember, didn't you film a few Avengers inspired bits for Sutton Park? I remember you doing high kicks and things like that.
I can't remember if I did it for Sutton Park or whether we did it for
Or was
Retaliators, which was the thing that we did with our friend David, which Nick was involved in, Elaine was involved in. I was very keen that we did a Tara King inspired title sequence, and that involved like running along a wall and falling off and things like that. That's the title sequence of Tara King where the door opens and there's like a door standing in the middle of a field, and it's all very arty. There's no reason for it. I wanted to spoof that. We might have done it for Sutton Park, but
You were going to have somebody throw the rose as with the Tara King title, and somebody
right.
drops it or
or
goes
the
ow.
thorns,
And,
the catching the thorns. Yeah, that's definitely wanted to do that.
I remember that.
As for you've still got a lot of the Doctor Who people involved in that season, and just the weirder the better, really. Things like Pandora and Wish You Were Here, and
Because you've got Terry Nation as story editor at that point.
Thingy Majig, that's an interesting one. There's loads of really interesting episodes in that period. I mean, I think I probably like the black and white Emma Peel more than I like the colour Emma Peel, and I don't really bother beyond Emma. I do. I mean, I usually consider myself a fan from Emma Peel onwards. I'm not that interested before then. I now own a box set of everything that exists, but
bar one episode.
Yeah. Bar all the things that are missing, but
I mean the one that they found now.
As for New Avengers, my favourite ones are mostly the obvious ones like Sleeper and Sleeper and Target. I like some of the Canadian ones in season 2, like Emily and the one in the Tower Block complex, and I can see that it was I feel like it was sort of beginning to. It could have gone on to even better things after, had it continued. I like the fact that it moved away from England and started being a bit more international. I could have seen that going on had it not been axed or concluded.
Okay, thank you. Right, Nick.
I will actually say, to reinforce what Paul said about that, I actually thought Linda Hilson was the best looking Avenger girl. Even I would actually say she was more attractive even than Joanna Lumley. So I think she's underrated as well.
But best story or period?
Best period of New Avengers or New Avengers?
Or New Avengers.
I don't
I will
really
include
feel
them as
well enough qualified to comment on the Avengers. I have to say, what I've seen, I would be tempted to agree with Paul. What I've seen of the old Avengers,
Yeah.
I've enjoyed Tara King as well. And I think there was one that stands out that was a comedy one. Dennis Spooner, of course.
Yeah.
Stop me if you've seen this
Oh,
one.
yes,
There's
yeah.
two fellas,
Yeah.
and you got Bernie Cribbins, and you got John Cleese.
John Cleese with a load of eggs with clown
that's right.
faces on.
Yeah. And that was great fun. That for me was the new Avengers.
I like that one,
The-
yeah.
No, that was the event. Sorry, that was the
was the
Avengers as it sort of was. It's rather brave. That was quite a brave episode.
But I was going to say, New Avengers is more.
Yes, I mean, I never heard of the Avengers when the new Avengers came
Yeah.
out.
So-
I remember it very well.
So did you
coming
know
out.
why they were new?
No, no. I just thought they'd sort of only unpack them, just kind of like they were fresh out of the box. No, it took me a while to realise that there had been previous Avengers, which is odd because my mum was very up on.
Well, I must
telly.
admit, I vaguely remember watching it, and I was confused because you had Gambit,
Yes.
the character, but you also had Gambit, the quiz show hosted by Fred Dinage, and I never worked out whether they were connected or not.
I mean, I came to New Avengers in 1976, completely unaware of the old
Yeah.
one. I don't think I was aware at all of it. And I was instantly. I enjoyed all the banter between Purdy and Gambit. I loved all that stuff. I loved I loved the bowler hat and Steed, and I remember even giving my sister a cardboard cutout Steed for Christmas. I don't think she probably still got it, but no. New Avengers is definitely my era. I respect the Avengers, the old Avengers, and I know that our friend Alan is a huge authority, has written books about it. But like Paul, I don't think I've even seen any Kathy Gale episodes. But I don't really kind of. But yeah, New Avengers. I would sort of zoom in on.
Best story.
Best story. It's almost appallingly easy. But I would say, and because I championed it for so long, stayed up late to watch it, begged my parents to let me stay out to watch it. It's got to be Target.
Well, you've got a Deep Roy story.
I've got a Deep Roy. Yeah,
Tell us your Deep Roy story.
Well, Deep Roy, who played the little diminutive sidekick of Keith Barron in it, there was recently put up on Facebook a picture of himself as publicity still from the show, and I thought, I've just got to tell him. I was just nuts about that episode. It turned well. The previous week I'd see Cat Amongst the Pigeons. I thought that's really good. But Target, whoa, want to watch this every week. It's the best thing on telly. And I said to him, the wheelings and dealings I did with my mother trying to stay up late for watch this, and he said, I got a target on you or something like that. He's really good with fans.
Yeah.
And but no, I just think editing, the whole idea is wonderfully. It works in an action sense. It works in a humour sense. It works in a threatening sense, and it's just so beautifully edited. And you've got the sort of kind of almost war gamesy kind of setup with that.
Yeah.
Again, the hot summer of '76. So you've got this like dreamy town, and suddenly all these people keep popping up and trying to shoot you. It's just captured my imagination as a kid, and we watched it
because there's that the exploding police box shot. Yes.
And my friend Joe Bunsell was, because it was shown around about the time I left school, and I said to Joe, it's Target, you've got to watch Target. And he said it was great, apart from the exploding police box. They killed the TARDIS. I don't think it was. But no, I just think it's got the lot, and you've got Purdy. One for the dads, Purdy shunting up the thing, and you've got a wonderfully icy villain with Keith Barron, and a wonderfully icy sidekick with Deep Roy. You've got your old Bob Beatty, you've got Bruce Purchase. It's just got everything. I cannot fault it. It's just such a good episode.
Thank you. Right, and finally, Sapphire and Steel we'll turn very briefly to. Best Sapphire and Steel story and why, Paul?
Well, I love the four-parters, so that knocked out all the other. That knocked out four of the stories. I think I wish that there had been more. I wish there had been more four-parters, and we had more stories. So it's very difficult between the Man with No Face and the Garage story. I swing between the two because I do. It's weird because I was kind of quite young when they were screened, but my parents used to go out quite a lot to do my dad's work, and I remember having babysitters, and I think the babysitters probably watched Sapphire and Steel, and that's how I got to see them too. And those are the only two stories I remember. So that's obviously also going to sort of give me a sort of personal sort of nostalgia. But I think I'll go with the Garage story 6, partly because when I've watched series 4, when I've watched story 4 more recently, I feel that it kind of, the first 2 episodes are really good, and then it might sort of towards the end, I think it sort of tails off a little bit. Whereas I think to story 4, you just don't know what's going on a lot of the time, and it kind of builds up, and you're not quite sure how it's going to end, and it keeps adding new little bits to it, and you get returning characters, and then the ending, of course.
What happens after the final scene, though?
A door opens and a podcaster steps through the door and says, "Hello, this is the Shy Life podcast. Would you like to be interviewed?"
Well, we haven't got anything else to do for eternity.
You're going to be here for eternity. And they just jump out the window. I'm not sure. Other than that.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Nick?
Again, Sapphire and Steel, great favourite. This is an agonising one, really.
I know.
Because,
I know this is
really
going to be difficult.
is a kind of agonising
But I'm holding
one.
a fake gun to your head.
I would love to be really brave and subversive and say Dr. McD, because I
Right.
really, that's such a good story and entertaining and everything. But a railway station, because it's the most frightening and ghost story you'll ever see, and it's just incredible and awesome. But I've got to be really strong with this one, and I would say, like Paul, I think the 4-parters are probably the most concisely written and the best. And for me, and funnily enough, I'm saying this having done a poll on the Sapphire and Steel site on Facebook, but I would have to go with Man with No Face,
Right.
because it's just neat, frightening. It just ticks all the boxes, and it's just a really, really spooky idea and clever. And again, it's got a tragic. You always had a tragic figure in the best of the Sapphire and Steels, and this has got one of the most tragic. Several of the most tragic in it, and it's just brilliant. It's and at the end, I actually do feel that it does deliver.
Yeah.
And you've also got the possibility he might come back, which is that lovely, very frightening end where
he's trapped, but they say,
get every picture of yourself, burn them, never have another taken.
I think you almost have to. I almost wonder how effective that was when you first watched it. I think that's more effective on rewatching. You realise, because
that's such a frightening line.
When you actually think about it, you've got time, and you've rewatched it a few times. You wow.
Yes.
Whereas when it was perhaps shown the first time, you might.
Also, it opens up even that single line opens up a kind of thing. Is you've got, even though that's just your picture. I mean, is it actually you? Even if you died, I mean, it opens up a whole lot of can of worms, and you just expect it to go, hang on a minute. But no, it expertly done, and they show at its best. But there's just so many good examples.
Yeah.
Although I have to say the worst ones I think were not worst in that I don't like them, but the one that didn't punch beneath their weight, I think, were Escape Through a Crack in Time and Creature's Revenge.
Yeah. I would say Story 3 is the only one I think Lisa and I feel is overstretched.
Yeah.
I mean,
We struggle.
yeah, it is.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean,
The idea is running thin at that point, I think.
And
But
also
then to come along with Story 4 afterwards, it being so much better is.
In the same way as you associate certain episodes of Blake Seven with me, I definitely say that there was a time when you were very much associated with Story 5.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm quite happy to be as well, because I had a sort of frightening memory of Felix coming through the door all sort of gunged up, and I went through the door. Oh, I wonder what that was about. Oh, too late. It's gone. No VHS, nothing. So it was a good nearly 10 years before I saw that story.
We've recently heard that Valentine Dyall's doing the commentary on the cricket match.
Yeah.
he was actually in real life at that cricket match.
Yes,
Yeah,
I suspected he might be.
Yeah.
But I do.
Which I'd only learned that a few weeks ago.
Paul actually is quite right. I do love that story. I think it hasn't got the very skilled minimalism of PJ, because PJ's got that kind of wonderful, kind of spooky kind of touch. But I think in terms of putting a story together, 1 is a bit of a mess, and 3 certainly is a bit of a mess. And it's got some good, nice bits, but they don't. It's less than some of its parts.
I appreciate the fact that you have actually opened it out to other writers.
Yes.
Just to see what they do with it.
And considering
just to be that brave and say, well,
and considering
have a go.
They only actually saw a couple of episodes. That's actually quite good, because I mean they actually do. There's a few things that they don't do before, but considering they're coming in on the show, I'm very fond of Dr. McD.
Right, well, thank you, both of you, good sirs.
Yeah, good one.
And let's do it again sometime.
Oh yes.
And thank you very much to Nick and Paul for that
thank you, Nick
lovely
and Paul.
piece.
Yes, it's a lovely piece, and very politely done as well. No arguing at all.
No fighting.
No.
Nick's recorded some other pieces as well, which will be on future issues. So we've got lots of stuff in the can.
Lots of good Goodman stuff coming up.
Yeah. A reminder that Paul's podcast, Shy Life Podcast, is still available on SoundCloud, iTunes,
jolly
all of that.
good it is too.
And we also did some recording for him for future editions. I think he's coming up to issue 100, isn't he, at some point?
He's past issue 100.
Is he? Oh, blimey.
Yes, busy boy.
But some odds and ends, mostly from the piece earlier.
Dixon of Dock Green.
Yes.
Firearms were issued.
Vivian Cousins is the production assistant we were trying to remember, who also worked on Blake Seven and on Grange Hill.
Yes.
Yes.
With Nicholas Donnelly, who played Mr. Mackenzie, who was a woodwork teacher.
And Mr. Mackenzie is actually 1985 onwards.
We got overexcited.
Yeah. But
presumably he takes over from Mr. Hopwood, who was also a woodwork teacher. Who's
I used
by
to have
Brian
a woodwork teacher who's called Mr. Woodward.
Was he?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward, the woodwork teacher.
Yes.
That's confusing.
Yes, there you go. We also watched the episode Sounds the other day as well, which is an interesting
that's
one.
An interesting one. Yeah. That's on just directly before firearms were issued.
Yes. Where they get a phone call and have to work out where it's come from based on the sound in the background.
Yeah, which is a boat,
yes,
which you might get now, and
an
industrial sound.
Yes.
They can't quite work out.
Well,
what
we won't give it away because it's worth a watch.
I said it was an industrial sound.
Yes.
Right. And they get somebody in to tweak it.
The episode also includes the infamous BBC blankets.
Oh yes, BBC blankets.
Which, once you get your eye in for them, appear in virtually everything in the 70s. They're sort of darkish.
That's Firearms Were Issued.
Firearms Were Issued, yeah. They're sort of darkish grey with a sort of red sort of stripe, red, yellow, green, black stripe at the bottom.
And they're in every single BBC production.
They're in
of the
Dad's
70s.
Army. They're in, I think they're in Mind of Evil, in
they're
Stanmore
in Porridge,
Prison.
aren't they?
They're probably in Porridge. They're in
Steptoe,
because they were in Steptoe.
Yeah, one we
and So to Bed, wasn't it?
Yes.
The Chase quiz show was on the other day, wasn't it?
We were watching that on Sunday. No, not Sunday.
When was it? A few days ago.
Friday. It was, yes.
And coincidentally, there was a question about where is Brunel University. So our ears pricked up at that, didn't they?
They did.
Yes. I think that's just about it. Oh, that we did have a message flood in from Warren, who really liked my singing, apparently. And he's asked that I should sing more in the future.
Has he? Are you sure you've read the message properly?
Although he seems to have spelt some of the words slightly wrong.
Right.
And what he seems to have typed, and I'm sure he didn't mean this, in capital letters with lots of exclamation marks, it says, "Never let him sing again." So I
Right.
don't quite understand what he means by that.
Okay, I think the meaning's fairly clear there.
I know he loves my singing.
Yeah.
He's a huge fan.
Yes.
Yes. Right, but what we really wanted to do now was just to spend a few minutes to remember the late Geoffrey Belden.
Yes, who passed away a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
As we are talking, and it's the 22nd of May.
Yes. But we are going to do Wurzel Gummidge
Yes.
in a minute.
Yes.
But
The trial of Wurzel
the trial of
Gummidge.
Wurzel Gummidge, in which, of course, he's superb as the Crow Man. But we'll
Yes.
talk about that when
Yeah.
we actually
Get
do
to
the
that.
piece.
Yeah.
But let's just think of a few other things that we've seen him in or he's
Yeah.
known for. Obviously, I think Catweasel is
Yes.
probably his biggest,
Yeah, and you superb at Catweasel.
biggest thing.
Yeah.
So we watched the Wogelstone
We did,
today,
yes.
didn't we?
Yes.
Which is from series 2.
Mm-hmm.
Series 2 is the one where he's collecting all the bits of the
Zodiac.
The Zodiac.
Yeah, it's
And
got a bit more of a linking theme.
This is the one for Virgo. So you've got Kenneth Cope as the
Yes.
guest star
with,
in
his,
that.
with a wig. I don't
Yes.
know if he's around in a hot cut wig. And he might be on the right way if it is this time, but
But again, it's a series, and we should perhaps do Catweasel in more detail
yeah.
in the future.
Yeah, we've actually got to find it again first.
Yeah, well, it's over there somewhere. But it really demonstrates just how good a cast you got in
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And it was played completely straight. There was no...
They're not playing it as a kids show.
No, they're
are
not
they?
playing it down to the kids.
There's a cat in there, isn't
There's
there?
a cat in
There's
there.
a black cat that looks like our Martha.
Yeah.
Yes.
We will put a picture of Martha up on the Round the Archives Twitter feed so that for those of you who want to see her, you can see her. We should put
Yeah.
one of Rose as well because you've been hearing Rose quite a lot.
Yes, but you've got Murray Watson as well.
It's Murray Watson, who also
who-
passed
yes.
away
recently.
recently.
Yes,
So it's quite a nice little tribute to
Elspeth
him.
Gray
Yeah.
and Peter Butterworth,
Yes.
who are all the regulars.
And
in it.
Tony Corton's in it as well.
Oh, Tony Cornter, yes. But there's a nice bit in that one where Catweasel comes across the big digging machine.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
quite reminiscent of what they do later in the goodies in the new Office. I don't know whether you've seen that one, where they've got all this animation of digging machines as though they're dinosaurs.
Oh, right. No, I don't
There's
think
three
I've seen that one.
three digging machines on a plane, and they're sort of opening and shutting the sort of
Okay.
buckets at the start, and they overlay sort of roars of
All right.
creatures on them.
No,
You've not seen that?
one.
Oh, it's just similar because Catweasel assumes it's some sort of creature.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic performance, Catweasel, isn't it?
Yes.
And I said perhaps we should do that, more
At some
fully
point.
at some point. But we were just sort of going through his list of stuff, and yet he's another of those actors who pops up in Sergeant Cork.
Yes.
This is Case of the Ormsby Diamonds
Yes.
from 1964.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also in that one with
Yeah.
Edward Woodward.
Edward Woodward,
Edward Woodward.
who's very good.
And Noel Johnson's
Noel
in
Johnson,
that as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So that's certainly worth
We can't actually
worth-
remember who he played at this precise moment in
worth a
time.
look. I think he might be an expert on diamonds, but I'm
Possibly,
not sure. I can't.
yeah.
I honestly can't remember.
Yeah.
It's a long time since
Yes.
we've seen that now.
And we also saw him fairly recently in Crib.
Oh yes, what was he in Crib?
He's a verger.
Right.
He's a verger, and his sister has two daughters who I won't say too much, but they're marrying elderly gentlemen,
Right.
and the elderly gentlemen don't necessarily live that long. And it has I've forgotten his name. The chap that is in Trial of a Time Lord.
Yeah, this is something old. This is Crib, something old, something new from
Yeah.
1980.
Mm-hmm.
He's Uncle Ezra
Uncle Ezra.
Winter.
Yes, he's convinced he's going to die at any moment. He's a hypochondriac.
Oh yes.
It's a really good performance.
Yes, I did like that
Yeah.
episode. That
Yeah.
was rather fun.
So,
But yeah, he does pop up in Crown Court a couple
yeah.
of
I don't
times.
think we've got to that far
Tales
yet.
of the Unexpected. Now
Yes.
he's done two, but
Yeah.
we've seen him in Fat Chance
Yes.
from 1980.
With
That's the Miriam Margolyes
is the
one, is
Miriam
it?
Margolyes one? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the Doctor
Yes.
Applegate in that.
Yeah.
That's rather fun as well,
It
isn't it?
is. Yeah.
Like that one. What else have we got? Blot on the Landscape. We've
Oh,
got
right,
Blot
yeah.
on the
We have
Landscape.
got Blot on the Landscape, yes.
I saw it on original
haven't seen it,
transmission,
no.
but you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so that's probably something
he's
we should do as
Ganglion,
well.
the lawyer in that. That's fun.
Because that's David Suchet, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Voyage of the Dawn Treader, 1989 production. He's in that as
Yeah.
Ramandu.
We've got that as well.
Yeah. All Creatures Great and Small.
Numerous parts.
Well, several.
Yes.
Jeff Hatfield, Mr. Mason, and Roland Partridge.
Mm.
Roland Partridge sounds like he should be in like Grange Hill, doesn't
He
it?
does. Yeah. But yeah, he's probably playing farmers and things.
Oh, should we mention Fort Boyard or Boyard?
Boyard.
Is it
Well, he is in it.
the professor?
Yeah,
yes.
there was a bit in Fort Boyard where...
Well, what is Fort Boyard?
Fort
Because
Boyard
a lot of people wouldn't know what that was.
is the crystal maze for stupid people.
It's set on. Was it set on some
Set
sort
on
of
some sort
sea
of
fort?
island, sea fort thing. And they have to... I don't know, I can't remember exactly, but they have to... I think they collect time.
Mm.
And then they get into a bit
It's sort
of
of
the
physical
end.
games,
Physical
isn't it?
games,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
And
Leslie
then you collect
Grantham.
coins. Yes, Leslie Grantham's in one series and Christopher Ellison's in one series. Obviously Christopher Ellison's in the later series.
But
Because Tom Baker's in it as well.
yeah, I was going to say Tom Baker's Captain Baker.
Yeah. That's just to make it easier for himself.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Belden's the professor, and he's in this sort of
basically
room,
he's in a
isn't
tower.
he? Yeah,
And
And
they
they
go
visit
into
him.
this tower and he asks them questions and gives them clues, and if they can get the answer, they get whatever it is they're competing for. I forget what it is they're
Yes.
competing for. I've never seen a whole episode. I've just sort of seen bits.
You tune in to see Jeffrey
Jeffrey
Belden
Belden
or Tom
and then
Baker, and
turn
then
it
you switch
over.
off because that was the
Yes.
good bit,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, of course he did Doctor Who, Creature from the Pit.
From the Pit.
He does get that wonderful line. What was it? Where he's the sort of astrologer. Was
Yeah.
it seer to princes? The past explained, the future foretold, the present apologised for.
Yeah,
And you can tell that's a real Douglas Adams
yeah,
line, can't you?
yeah. And he's wonderful in that.
Yes.
Yeah. And there is a thing I wanted to mention as well. There's a DVD. It's a documentary about Wurzel Gummidge.
Yes.
And it's called Return to Scatterbrook Farm, and we urge you to buy it because it's very good and all the money goes to charity.
Yeah. I think it's just Return to Scatterbrook. Actually.
Oh, we're
yes.
going to buy Scatterbrook. Well,
Memories of Wurzel.
Memories of Wurzel.
Yeah.
they would still find it if they put
Yes,
farm
I
in.
know.
And he's telling a story about when he was in the stage play of Wurzel Gummidge, the musical. And apparently at the start of that, he, to start, there's a big storm because he's bringing the scarecrows to life.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks to the front of the stage and he had to say, "I am a crow man."
Yeah.
And one night he walks to the front of the stage and says, "I am a skeleton." And all the chorus behind him were all dressed as scarecrows, are all sniggering. And he's like, right.
Okay, don't do that again.
Don't do that again. And a couple of nights later, he walks to the front of the stage. "I am a skeleton." "Oh, I've done it again." He tells it much better than me, so we urge you to buy the DVD to watch. It's a really good DVD anyway. It's if you like Wurzel Gummidge,
Yes.
it's very interesting.
Yes.
Along with the Milk Book, which is also very interesting.
Yes, indeed. Yes, so yes, we'll move on now, I think, to
Yeah.
do the actual
The piece,
Wurzel Gummidge.
but Jeffrey Belden, we
Piece.
salute you
Yes.
for giving us years and years of
Yes.
wonderful performances.
Yes. Okay, and now just a very short piece where we got a few words from Jack Hargreaves talking about Southern television and maybe helping to put Wurzel Gummidge in context in
Yeah.
its role in sort of children's programmes done by Southern. So back in a second.
Okay, bye-bye.
Children's programs came about for us because there was something of a neglect of children's programs. The industry was fairly young. The job of filling the network with first-class programs in peak time was enough, and more than enough, in the early years for the major companies to tackle. And there was a bit of a neglect of children's programs, and the authority really put the boot in, so to speak. And they founded a children's subcommittee, and we all set off to improve children's programs. And Southern Television thought that this is an area in which they could make a major contribution, so we set off to do it.
So, Wurzel Gummidge, Lisa.
Yes, Wurzel Gummidge.
Oh, there's a lot we can say about Wurzel
There is a lot we can
Gummidge.
say about Wurzel Gummidge because it's not just a television series.
No. I certainly watched the television series when it
Yeah.
came on, but I
think
was
probably
already
did too.
very familiar with the character from years before that,
Right.
because I was lucky enough to have 2 of the books
Right.
as a kid. I had the books Wurzel Gummidge and Wurzel Gummidge and Saucy Nancy.
Right,
So I already knew the character.
right.
But we better, as usual, give a bit of background.
Well, Wurzel Gummidge is a scarecrow.
A scarecrow who comes alive, and
to
he
life,
features in 10 original books
Okay.
written by Barbara Youth and Todd. The first book is simply called Wurzel Gummidge
Yeah.
from 1936 all the way through to 1963 when you get Detective Wurzel Gummidge.
Okay.
I sort of got a bit of a bee in my bonnet a couple of years ago, didn't I? And I was
Yes.
determined to collect all of the books.
Yeah, we managed to track them all down.
Yeah. Most of them are quite easy to get hold of.
Yeah. There are a couple though that are a bit harder
Because a lot of them were reprinted in the 80s when the
when the series had
when the
gone
series
out.
was being broadcast. The ones that are hard to get hold of, though, are More About Wurzel Gummidge from 1938 and Wurzel Gummidge Takes a Holiday from 1949. And those are the only ones where we spent a bit of money.
Yes, had to spend a little bit
Yeah.
more to get those.
I think Wurzel Gummidge Takes a Holiday, and it's a lovely... It's quite a thick book, actually.
It is. Yeah.
Came as a hardback, and that was about 20 quid, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because it was a collector's
Yes.
proper piece, because that has never been reprinted.
No.
So that one is hard to get hold of, but
Yes.
we managed it in the end, and I was very pleased. But the books are quite mysterious and magical.
Yes. So he's not a wizard like it says he is on the back
Yeah,
of the modern day
there's
reprints.
a modern day reprint. It says Wurzel Gummidge is the Scarecrow, and he's also a wizard. No, he's not.
No, it's just because it's to tie him with all the Harry Potter stuff.
Yeah,
But he's
just
not a
an
wizard.
excuse to sell
Because he doesn't bring
sell
himself to
books
life.
under false pretenses.
The Crowman brings him to life, or there is another version
Hmm.
of it, isn't there?
But when the series started, it was a bit of a surprise to me the way they did it, because, as I said, I'd read 2 of the books, and to me they were always quite creepy.
Yeah.
They were quite dark. I'd just like to read a little bit from Earthy Mangold and Wurzel Gummidge, which is from 1954.
Okay.
Which is talking about Earthy Mangold and when she first comes alive.
Right.
Because you have the things that the scarecrows are effectively born.
Yes.
They're put together and they come to life for the first time. So let me just read this. Oh, Upsy Daisy and Hannah Harrow are other scarecrows in this scene. Oh, Mr. Gummidge, interrupted Upsy Daisy. Oh, Hannah Harrow, the new scarecrow's starting to stir. It was quite true. The sacking skirt and cloak of the new scarecrow began to stir faintly, as though they were being fanned by invisible breezes. The sprouting potato shoots that made her hair turned to a brighter green. The twiggy fingers clutched the air and then spread themselves gently. The hawthorn bough legs rustled as softly as a hedge in springtime, and the little scarecrow smiled. As she did so, the birds in the distant rookery made loud protests. "Oh, aye," announced Wurzel Gummidge. "The new scarecrow's come alive now. The rooks say so." Ooh, that is
It's quite freaky.
that
yeah.
is
Yeah.
magical and creepy and weird.
Yeah.
But you can see exactly how
Yeah,
you'd
you see how
shoot that.
You shoot it. You start with the hands.
Yeah,
and
that
move up the body.
that just
and,
punches up images
Yeah.
in my head.
Or maybe you start at the feet and go up the body to the hands,
and
and
then,
then up
and then
the body
the
to
face
the head, and
moves.
do the little smile.
Yeah, but you could you could terrify kids with
You
that.
could
couldn't
terrify
you?
kids with that. Yeah.
The first book, Wurzel Gummidge, has got some lovely illustrations
Yes, it has.
in it as well. And there's a bit late towards the end where the scarecrows are going to war against another scarecrow. And it's almost sort of like silhouette. It's a very sort of black and white picture with all these outlines of scarecrows. And if you look carefully in this picture, one of them appears to be like conjoined twins.
Yeah, it's got 2 bodies, but
It's
one
got
leg each.
2 bodies which have sort of separated. Each body's got 1 leg. It's got an arm on one side and an arm and two heads.
And 2 heads. No.
And that, if
Yeah.
you tried to do
I
that,
don't think you could do
you
that
couldn't
on
do that on
television.
telly
No.
without a load of CGI and
It's
stuff.
very scary.
So these books, they're if you've not read the books,
You should read the book.
seek out at least Wurzel Gummidge,
This is
the
probably the
first
easiest
one.
one to get. Just ignore
Yeah.
the stuff on the back about being a wizard.
Yeah, Wurzel Gummidge and Saucy Nancy is very good as well.
Yeah.
Um,
But she's not like Barbara
she's
Windsor.
not like Barbara Windsor is in the TV show. But yeah, she sort of she always points out to sea. She's got this
Yes.
outstretched arm
Yeah.
that points to the sea, and she chews tobacco, and she's got a like shawl that's made out of fishing net.
Fishing net,
and
yeah.
She actually, having just seen Knock Knock in Doctor Who with a wooden
Yes.
woman character in that's very much
That's
how
how she would look.
how Saucy
Yeah.
Nancy looks in
Yeah.
my head. That she is wood, and you can see it in her face all the time. But then the TV show sort of comes
Comes
on,
along, yeah.
and you have to change the books for the TV show.
Yeah.
There's no question of
Because it
it.
can't be that scary. It can't be that dark.
No, in the books, John and Susan are very much the characters you identify with. You
Yeah.
see Wurzel Gummidge through
Through
their
their
eyes.
eyes, yeah.
John and Sue are not in all the books. You get
No.
other identification characters later on. But of course, in the TV show, Wurzel is
It's going to be
The
the, central
is the
character.
lead character.
Yeah, you don't get an actor of John Pertwee's calibre
Yeah.
and then sideline him.
But changing it for the TV show is another reason you get the Crowman.
Yes. Because you need an authority figure.
Yes, you need somebody for Wurzel to talk to
Yeah.
and interact with who's
Yeah.
not
Him.
who's not the kids.
Not the kids, yeah.
So you get the Crowman, and Jeffrey Belden plays that part
Yeah,
immaculately.
he's wonderful. He's the
You
Crowman.
do get references in the books to Wurzel's creator, and indeed, the continuity doesn't quite join up. There's a reference in Wurzel Gummidge to the man that made him,
Yeah.
and later on you get a farmer in Earthy Mangold and Wurzel Gummidge who creates Earthy Mangold. Earthy Mangold is Wurzel's wife in the books.
Yeah.
In the original books, Aunt Sally is literally his aunt.
Yes.
She's a scary, authoritative,
Yeah.
rather nasty aunt figure who's got 3 legs.
Yes.
Um,
Is she like a sort of Jeeves and Wooster aunt?
well, I think she's like a David Fisher aunt. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? David Fisher, when he used to write Doctor Who stories,
Yeah.
used to write these evil female characters.
So she's like the sort
and
of...
he used to say they
yeah.
were always based on a succession of
aunts.
horrible aunts that he had. So, yeah, Wurzel isn't in love with Aunt Sally in the
No.
books. He's petrified of her,
Yeah.
and she is his aunt. She's not a potential wife for him or anything like that.
And he should go. He should have gone off with Dolly Close Peg
Oh.
in the television series
Oh,
anyway.
what was it you said that Wurzel's obsessed with Aunt Sally because men
Yeah.
can't see a good thing when they see it?
No.
And
No. Dolly
Close
Close
Peg,
absolutely adores him,
yeah.
and she would be really good for him, and she would look after him. But he likes being treated badly by Aunt Sally.
Oh, I see. All right, okay.
Yeah.
I
I didn't say all men. I said some men.
I was going to say, yeah, because...
Anyway, I told you I'm Earthy Mangold. Anyway.
Oh, you're Earthy
I'm
Mangold?
Earthy
Yeah,
Mangold,
all right,
yes.
okay.
Because she likes animals,
Yes.
and I like animals.
Right. Talking about Jeffrey Belden,
Yes.
one thing I did miss is that his appearance in the Porridge movie as the governor of the prison, he gets one of the best lines in that film, where they're talking about a celebrity football team that's
Yes.
going to visit Slade Prison,
Yeah.
and he said, "Didn't we hear something from that comedian Jimmy Tarbrush?" And Mr. Mackay leans over and says, "Buck, sir." Oh yes, Buck Tarbrush.
Yeah.
And that has me on the floor each time.
He's got no idea, is
Yeah.
he? He's
But let's move on to the actual episode we're supposed to be talking about, which is the trial of Wurzel Gummidge.
yes.
This one I think is very good, not just for John Pertwee, but
No.
for Jeffrey Belden
Jeffrey
as
Belden,
well.
yeah. And you get a succession of scarecrows.
Yeah.
You get Bill Maynard as Sergeant Beetroot,
Yeah.
who I'm surprised has got any straw left by the end of it, because every time he moves, because he salutes, because he's
Yeah.
a soldier, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's dressed as a soldier.
But in sort of thematic terms, this one is actually quite dark,
Yes.
because you get this you get this sequence where the Crowman summons all the other scarecrows to stand trial over Wurzel
to be the jury,
the jury,
or be the
and you
witnesses.
get these shots of these scarecrows lurching through the fields.
Yeah.
There's a sound of a tolling bell,
Yeah.
isn't there? And some of the shots have got gravestones in it, and effectively it's shot like a zombie movie, isn't it?
The only way you would make it any darker is if it wasn't quite such a bright sunny day when they
if
shot
you'd filmed it at night, it would have been petrifying.
Yeah.
There is a video that somebody's done on YouTube where they've taken a load of scary shots from Wurzel Gummidge and put some scary music on it. They've called it Halloween excuse me, March of the Scarecrows.
Yeah.
And I sent this to somebody at work who'd never seen Wurzel Gummidge. And he was convinced that this was shown at 9 o'clock at night. Admittedly, it's a lot of selective clips.
Yes.
And it does include some of the scary stuff from Wurzel Gummidge Down Under.
Oh, yeah, that's really scary.
Where you've got
isn't it?
these horrible Frankenstein monster type scarecrows that eventually burst into flames, turn into skeletons, and then collapse.
Yeah, because the Crowman over there snaps a twig or something.
I don't know. We haven't seen the episodes yet.
You've just watched the first episode of Wurzel Gummidge Down Under,
Yeah.
and it's different.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we'll talk about that a bit later. But let's get back to trial. Gummidge is made by Southern TV, and they're chucking a lot of money at it because it's all done on film, and it's shot very,
really nicely,
very well. I mean,
it's done by a film director, James Hill.
I mean,
isn't
James Hill shoots it utterly perfectly.
Yeah.
I did have a bit of a memory that there was more like cream cake fights and things like that.
Yeah, that's what I always associate with it, but there's less than you think.
Yeah,
there is a bit of that.
Yeah, they do certainly put enough scary, weird bits in for my my critical opinion. I mean, let's talk about Daft Head briefly, which is
Daft Head. That's the only episode, and he's in. Is it Fire Drill? Did you say
Fire Drill? Yeah, Wurzel creates
only episode that's ever really freaked me out.
Yeah, because Wurzel's going to get burnt on the bonfire.
Yeah.
So he creates Daft Head, which is a scarecrow to put on the bonfire in his place. Unfortunately, Wurzel finds he's got the same ability to make living scarecrows that the Crowman's got.
Yeah.
Daft Head does come back later. There's Return of Daft Head.
It might be that one I've seen, actually.
Yeah, because he's got this horrible gash of a mouth.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I just remember this shot of him turning to look at the camera.
And the kids are scared.
Yeah. Because he's not really got a proper face, has he?
But Fire Drill's the one. I mean, again, some of this is taken from the books. There's a chapter in one of the books, Wurzel Gummidge again, I think, where it's Guy Fawkes night, and there's this Guy Fawkes that's going to go on the bonfire, and he and Gummidge swap clothes for some reason or another. But in Fire Drill, Gummidge basically his entire body gets burnt alive, and all that's left is his head, and the Crowman has to make him a new head, a new body to go with what remains of his, his head. And he says, "Well, I've given you new arms and a new legs and a new stomach, but never all at the same time. So if this doesn't work, don't come running to me." Basically, so that's quite dark as well.
I hope they took his robin out before they burned it.
Oh yes, the robin flew away. I think it wasn't stupid. Yeah, but yeah, trial. I think. If you compare Trial of a Time Lord and the Trial of Wurzel Gummidge, there's more scary bits per minute in Trial of Wurzel Gummidge.
Yeah. It's not so brightly lit for one.
Yeah, I mean, all this film stuff does help. But yeah, the varying scarecrows that you get in this one. I mean, there's this really tall one, isn't it?
Yes.
So played by some bloke who's 7'6" or something.
Yeah. And they just shoot it really low. They put the camera down virtually on the ground to make him look even taller.
But Gummidge is on trial for various things, including knocking the Crowman's hat off with a potato, isn't it? Because the way it's set up is that...
he hears the farmer talking to a salesman, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's going to replace...
He's thinking about replacing him with an electric crow scarer.
Yeah, and sort of Gummidge realises he's better pull his finger out, so he starts chucking potatoes at the crows. And he manages to chuck them a long way, because one lands sort of in the pub when they're sat outside, several land in the river.
I don't think they were in the pub. I thought they were Farmer Braithwaite's land.
Yeah, but even so, he's shifting them a hell of a long way. Mind you, he has made a catapult at this point, hasn't he? But then he knocks the crowman's hat off, and that's the last straw.
Yes.
And then you start to see the power of Geoffrey Belden's performance.
Yeah, because normally he's really benevolent and kind and gentle, but he can really turn it very quickly.
But right, Wurzel, that's it. You know, and he's takes Wurzel off on the back of his trailer.
Yeah, and his tricycle.
Yeah, and then, you know, Wurzel realises that he's in real trouble because he's going to be dug into the compost heap, basically to rot alive, isn't it? He's going to be executed. Yes. So this is nasty stuff, and quite right too. Yeah. And the more of this, the better, in my opinion. I'd also say there's a great scary movie to be made in Gummidge.
Yeah, because they announced a while back they were going to make another television series or a film.
Yeah,
but nothing much has come to it because I think the rights are all tied up somewhere.
Yeah, that's the trouble.
It's probably because Southern that made it
doesn't exist.
Yeah. So it's like, where do the rights go?
The TV
Who holds
rights
the TV rights to it?
I wouldn't even pretend to sort of work that one out. But I mean, the TV show, the original run of it is, I think it was successful pretty much from the start, because the first series is February 1979. Series goes through to series 4 in December 1981. And December 1981 is unfortunately when Southern lose their license to broadcast. There's even a Christmas special, Cup of Tea and a Slice of Cake, from December 1980. This is the one where they covered, I think it's Lymington.
With
fake snow.
And something went wrong.
Yeah, the designer was told, but the snow will disintegrate within a day, but it was still like blowing around like days later and going in antique shops and sticking to people's antique furniture and lots of insurance claims, I think, were talked about.
I don't think they were very popular in Lymington after that.
But I think we now got every existing episode, haven't we? Because we managed to get the New Zealand stuff as well, which is from 1987 to 1989. Just point out that Peter Jackson is credited on an episode. Is it one or two? I'm not sure. I can't remember.
I don't know which one
to look it up. Yeah. But as he works on effects, I just like the idea that we know that Peter Jackson's a huge Sylvester McCoy fan because he's got a Sylvester costume.
Yes.
I do wonder whether he used to cosplay as Wurzel Gummidge as well. If he was I'm sure he was a Pertwee fan as well.
Was.
I'm just trying to imagine how excited he was though to be working with John Pertwee, even for so short a time.
Rose wants to come in.
All right. Well, shall we let the cat in?
We'll let the cat in.
Well, what we'll do?
There's something we want to play.
Yes. There's lots of spin-off merchandise for Wurzel Gummidge. There's books, there's annuals, there's all sorts of stuff. But John Pertwee did record a number of songs in character as Wurzel. Yeah. And one of them we do want to play is Wurzel's Warning, which is warning kids not to talk to strangers. So we're just going to play a few seconds of that, and we'll come back. So here's Wurzel's Warning.
All no strangers mean danger. No matter what he said, you could just end up dead. Never ever talk to a stranger. If they offer to take you for a ride, then that's when you run away and hide. 'Cause the things that they may do will scare the life from you. So remember to avoid a stranger.
And here's me complaining that the series isn't scary enough sometimes. That's terrifying, that song. That really is.
Yes.
But a little bit more about the TV series. We haven't really talked about the guest stars. I mean, John Pertwee, is known for getting his mates in if he can. So you get lots of really good guest appearances. So you've got Bill Maynard, but you've also got Joan Sims as Mrs. Bloomsbury Barton.
Yes,
of
or
course.
the fat lady, as well as calls her.
Michael Ripper
Yeah.
is in there. Lorraine Chase is Dolly Closepeg.
Yeah.
Bernard Cribbins is Jolly Jack.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the episode.
No, I don't know what
episode
episode
he's
that
in.
is.
I think there's one in a fish and chip shop or something.
Oh, right.
He's a sort of figure that's out stood outside.
Uh-huh.
Cup of tea and a slice of cake has got Billy Connolly.
Yes.
And a load of other
Yeah.
Scottish scarecrows. Beryl Reid,
Yeah.
I think, is Wurzell's mum.
Yes.
The whole thing about the Wurzell's family tree.
It's all a bit weird.
It's all a bit complicated.
because he's obviously created by the Crow Man.
Yeah, but you've got his nephew as well,
Yes.
Pickles Brambles, played by Wayne Norman. He has got, I think, a nephew in the books who is HMS Odney.
Oh right, yeah. He's got a
Who's-
sailor's hat.
He's
on,
got a
hasn't he?
sailor's hat on for the ship HMS. I think it's Rodney, but the R's fallen off.
Yeah.
So it's HMS Odney.
Yeah.
And he's got, I think, fly swatters for legs, for feet.
Fruit.
And when he walks, he stands on his own feet, so it takes ages for him to get anywhere.
Right.
The books have got some damn weird scarecrows. There's Upsidaisy,
Yeah, there's one with
who's got a milking
Milking
stool.
stool,
So he's
yeah.
got 3 legs and
Yeah.
he sort of rotates as he goes along. There's Hannah Harrow. Her stomach's been eaten away by mice,
Yeah, so
and all the
she's leaking
sawdust. She's
sawdust,
continually
yeah.
leaking sawdust.
Yeah.
So effectively, she's bleeding all the time,
Yeah.
and she gets ill when she loses so much sawdust, and
Yeah.
then they have to stuff it back in. You don't get the swapping head stuff that you get in the TV
No.
show.
Well, that's just to give
That's an
John Pertwee
excuse
a
for
bit
John
of comedy
Pertwee to play different
versions
versions
and
of-
do different accents.
and yeah, because there's the handsome head. That's
Yeah.
scary, isn't it?
Yes.
That's a horrible looking thing.
Yes.
But you've got one of my favourites, which is the wangling head.
Oh, the wangling head. You like the wangling
I love the
episode.
wangling head because
Yeah.
clearly everybody involved just thought, right, well, if Wurzel went fishing, what would he'd need a head, and it's got a sort of sou'wester
Yeah.
hat sort of thing on. But you get this wonderful sequence where he pulls his head off, sticks the new head on, and goes, "Now for a spot of wangling." And then later on, he sees a load of fishermen fishing, like fishermen do, and he goes, "Oi, you! I'm talking to you, you damn wanglers!"
Yeah.
And it's just an excuse to be filthy, isn't
Yes.
it? It's a real sort of
Yes.
how far can we go with
Yeah.
with innuendo? I love that. So yeah, we've seen a few sort of gummages recently. As I
Yes.
said, we have seen the first of the New Zealand ones.
We'll watch tomorrow. Though,
Yeah,
so-
I didn't see the New Zealand ones when they came out at all. I haven't got a clue about them really. I think I saw most of the UK ones, but I think it's well overdue for a remake
Yeah.
on TV.
You want to cast Phil Davis, don't
I
you?
think Phil Davis would be an interesting choice. He's not the tallest of people,
No,
is
he
he?
doesn't need to be tall. He's a scarecrow.
But I think he's got an ability to be
Yeah.
slightly sinister,
Yeah.
slightly weird, and funny, and odd, and all the things that I
Yeah.
mean, you can't have somebody doing John Pertwee again
No, because there's only one John Pertwee.
Pertwee's gummage is absolutely brilliant,
Mm-hmm.
and attempting to redo that
Would
be wrong.
wrong, yeah.
So if you were to do gummage again, you need a completely different
Different
approach.
kind of actor, yeah.
I would tend to go for the books and go back to the original text and make it a historical thing. Because don't forget, that first book is 1936.
So you'd set it in the past.
So I would make it a 1930s thing,
Right, okay.
and that would be interesting. I'm not sure how well gummage would work in modern day. I don't know.
Yeah.
You need, I mean, yeah, it was made 1979, and I don't know whether trying to make it 2017, whether the world's a
Moved
bit
on too much.
There's not much room for sort of magic in the world
No.
at the moment. I
No.
don't know. But yeah, make it in the 30s, and yeah, I think you could do it do it very well if you did it like that. But there's a sort of, there's lots of ways you could do Gummidge. I mean, there's sort of horrific, stories of attempted remakes, like making it in sort of making him young.
Oh yeah.
There was that sort of supposed American thing where he was like a sort of a teenager or something like that, and that's just.
Why would that work? That wouldn't work.
No, Gummidge has got to be mysterious and old. He's got to have, as Tom Baker would say, he's got to have secrets and things like that. Yeah. And you want it's that mix of magic and comedy and grumpiness, and he's got to be odd.
Yes.
And the TV show nails that in one very good way. There are other ways you could do it.
But he's not good looking. He's not.
No, I mean the illustrations in the book. He is very much. His neck is a pole.
Yeah.
And it's a vegetable stuck on top of it with a gash for a mouth and eyes and all that.
He does look quite friendly on that version.
Yeah, that one's nice. He's got sort of bottle straw boots, as they call it. There's the bit that I read you from one of the books where he's stuck in the chimney and his feet are on fire, isn't it? Yeah. And that's quite horrible.
Yeah.
But yes, a few more thoughts about Trial. I think it is one of the ones to, I think, watch first if you've never seen Gummidge, because as I said, it's got my sort of one of my favourite balances of tone. I think it's a sort of a quite self-contained story, really. You have got all the jury of scary scarecrows. They have put a bit of effort into
making the costumes different.
I mean, the set design, even the
it's got different levels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all shot on location anyway. Yeah. So I would get. I don't know whether that barn stuff is actually a specially designed set or whether they just found a really good looking barn. Yeah. Don't know, but yeah, it's just a fantastic series. I think.
It is.
The book. We have to mention the book.
The
Wurzel book by Stuart Manning.
It's another milk book.
Another fabulous milk book.
Yeah. And he's gone to he's spoken to sort of most of the people involved.
Yes.
That are still alive.
Yes.
And most of the people involved have very fond memories of it.
Quite right too. I mean, it is just a fantastic series. So if you've never seen Wurzel,
treat yourself to it.
Treat yourself. It's all available now. Yeah. It's on DVD. A Blu-ray might be nice
at some point, but again, rights issues. So.
Yeah, it's difficult. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But the DVDs are out there,
and they're perfectly watchable.
And get them, and it's just fantastic.
And it's a little bit of John Pertwee magic.
I mean,
he obviously really enjoyed doing
Belden, Una Stubbs, are your sort of trio of. Yeah. And that's such a strong cast. Yes.
But you will watch it and wonder why Wurzel likes Aunt Sally, because she's so horrible to him.
Yeah. Go back. Go to Dolly Closebag, Wurzel. It's
she loves you much more.
Yeah. Okay, and I think we'll round it up there. And I think that's this issue just about done. Blimey. Issue 11 then.
Yes.
Oh, well,
Here we come.
See you all soon then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. The Teddy Boys ain't partial to me company. They don't like all their antics to be seen. By an ordinary copper who's patrolling the streets around Jock. green, never banana.
Brilliant.
Parker and Trowbridge came to trial in June, appearing at Colchester Crown Court. Trowbridge's defence was diminished responsibility after inhaling too many potions in his laboratory. If I had a penny for every time I'd heard that one. Well, I'd have £2.27 actually. Parker pleaded guilty, but said she'd been led astray by the warped personality of Trowbridge, which, having had a look at him, I can well believe. Judge Piles was in a lenient mood after a trip to the pub, and they were sentenced to watch 3 episodes of a bad NTSC conversion of Come Back Mrs. Noah, with 3 episodes suspended. And I'll be keeping an eye on them to make sure they don't go back to their old tricks. Good night, all.
That was episode 10 of Round the Archives, starring Lisa Parker and Andrew Trowbridge, with Warren Cummings, Nick Goodman and Paul Chandler.
On the musical side, you heard Dan Tate and Paul Chandler.
The script for Dixon of Dock Green, Firearms Were Issued, was by N.J. Crisp, and the script for The Trial of Wurzel Gummidge was by Keith Waterhouse and Willis Hall.
And the producers were Joe Waters and James Hill.
Good night, all.
Good evening, all. Recently, we've been having a noticeable rise in unlicensed podcasting in Dock Green. Usually they don't cause much trouble. Often it's just a couple of youngsters that are droning on about YouTube videos and the like. Martha, you ran past me. Good evening, all. Recently, we've been having a noticeable rise in Good evening, all. Recently, we've been having a noticeable rise in unlicensed podcasting in Dock Green. Usually they don't cause much trouble. Often it's just a couple of youngsters that are droning on about YouTube videos and the like. A swift clip round the ear and they soon learn the error of their ways. But now and then you run into some right nasty pieces of work. Take the cakes of Parker and Trowbridge. They've got some nasty cakes.